Good evening, everybody. It's your host, Huge Pop from the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. Next to me is my brother, the MA Double T. Our guest tonight is a retired professional wrestler, best known for his time in American wrestling territories during 1970s and 1980s. He's particularly recognized for his work with WCW and the WWF. Our guest has held many champions, including the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. He's done some announcing. He plays a lot of golf. Welcome to the show, the living legend. I'm sorry, back it up. Living legend, Larry Zbyszko. How you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm doing good. I can't complain. And you know what, guys? I mean, I've been lucky because I just turned like 73, and the couple of friends I got left in the business, like a couple of years younger than me, the rest are dead. But they got artificial hips and artificial knees and artificial. So I have nothing. So I've been so lucky. And I'm not doing anything to hurt myself. A little golf, and that's it. I stretch out and do isometrics and boo on me and
Boo on me.
some interesting things going. So I can't complain. How you guys doing?
We're doing really good. I will say thank you. I knew it was supposed to be tomorrow. We were supposed to get on here, but we had to bring it to today because it's my birthday tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
happy birthday. Yeah.
we're going to
You
celebrate
think you
that.
would have known that when you set it up the first?
I would have.
I mean,
Duh. Yeah.
Hey, my wife. But I can't. I'm going to blame my wife on that one. So
Yeah, just tell her to boo on me. And
boo on me. There you go. So Matt, how you doing?
wonderful. Very excited. Been looking forward to this all week. Actually, I've been looking forward to this since given the news, 2 months ago. It's been, I've been definitely looking forward to this.
It's been a pleasure talking to you on your phone, and I'm sure we'll continue to stay in touch with each other after this. So Matt Dabulis, thank you for coming on. Joshua Witt, thank you for coming in. But let's talk about Larry Zbyszko, living legend, man. So what was it like? Was your childhood like as a child and growing up watching wrestling?
well, I was born in Chicago. And then my dad, who worked for U.S. Steel, an international tax accountant, he got transferred to U.S. Steel's new headquarters, which was in Pittsburgh. And I arrived in Pittsburgh. I think I went to 8th grade there. I was like 12 years old or something. Shoot the dog! So, and it was the first time I got to see wrestling. I mean, the young generation doesn't realize, like when I was growing up in the 50s and television was starting to hit, every home and every house had a big antenna sticking up. And we only had like 4 channels. Even now you got 4,000. And back then, TV was on, it would end at 10 o'clock. The big show, Perry Mason or whatever, would end at 10 o'clock. And from 10 to 10:15 would be the news. And that was it, 15 minutes at night. And then they had the late show. And then like at midnight, the TV would go off. I mean, it's such a different world we're growing up in today. But it's, I can't I have no idea what streaming is. And this Boo on Me thing, which kind of popped up, it's a record I made in 1980.
Okay.
45, 50 years ago, whatever, 1980, when everybody hated me. I was the most hated guy. I mean, I was shot at, stabbed, riots. It was an interesting life. So, shut up! Kick him, Corny! Shut him up! Shut up! Anyway, you can see what a madhouse this place is. Shut up! Shut up. Welcome to Larryland. Well, anyway.
All right.
I arrived to Pittsburgh, and it's the first time I saw wrestling. I was like 12 years old, whatever 7th, 8th graders are. And I was watching it, and something got to me. And it had to do with back in the old days, especially it was the good guys versus the bad guys. It was good versus evil.
Right.
And you'd get into this. And at the time, Bruno Sammartino was, the big star. But back then, I mean, when you looked at Bruno, you went, "Oh my God!" I mean, this guy's like a gorilla, and whatever he did, you believed because it was real. I mean, he was, amazing, strong, and he had the look. And it got to me, he became like my hero.
Yeah.
And then I found out when I was 16 driving around, I found out where his house was, like a couple of miles from my parents' house there in south side of Pittsburgh. And I would drive out of my way sometimes when I was going that way and go by his yard to look like a stalker. And one day I drove by and I could barely see him because he had these big bushes, big shrubbery bushes around his yard. But I saw him for a second as I drove by, standing by his pool, getting a tan, and I couldn't help it. I stopped the car and got out and I crawled through this guy's hedges. And I get through these hedges and he turns around and looks at me and he goes, "Oh my God, I'm some fan crawling through my hedges." Anyway, long story short, but he was impressed with my amateur record. And it was at a time when his career was slowing down. He'd be doing the big shows on the weekends, but he wouldn't be doing any more smaller shows all over the Northeast. So it worked out good. We started training together. I did the Bruno workout, got the Bruno look kind of. The most I benched when I first started, I weighed between 245, 250, and I benched 465 and a half pounds.
Damn.
That was my record with the 1 second pause.
Pops.
That became my dream, was to become a wrestler and beat the bad guys. And it was a dream come true at the end when my hero, Bruno, inducted me into the Hall of Fame. And that Hall of Fame ring's one of my prized possessions because the WWE is a great company, but it was a whole dream come true at the end for me, that wanting to be like my hero, and wound up doing it.
So you sneak through this guy's bushes.
Yeah.
And years later, he's giving you the ring for the Hall of Fame. That's impressive.
I mean, it was kind of like when you get to my age, and I've been into a lot of research with ancient mythology and nature creation, reality. Right now, we're in the Iron Age, and you can see the world's a mess. Wars here, wars there. This mind-boggling. Oh, you're black, you're white, you're brown, you're red, you're green, you're blue. Oh, you're this religion, you got that God, we got this God, we must hate you. It's not at all what nature designed. We're living in the Iron Age. That's another story, but you can see it, especially from my day to today. Everything's changing, and hopefully it'll work out good. But Mother Nature, I mean, we're on a living planet. And Mother Nature always corrects her creation, and we get out of the Iron Age and be human beings with all our energy. And what the hell am I talking about? Boo on me.
Hey, boo on you.
The movie, what happened was that a guy at Pro Wrestling Tees knew about the Boo on Me song. And when we made this movie, The Unbreakable Bunch, the director heard Boo on Me on my phone. It was my answering tone. And they were going to put the Boo on Me song at the end of the movie when the credits were going up. And then some legalities. But during the movie, I do a classic scene where I come out, shoot the aliens, and go, "Boo on me, you parasites." Yeah. So the one guy at Pro Wrestling Tees made this shirt up. And that's really stupid when I think about it, because I made the record in 1980, and the business was different then. But 5-6 years down the road, they started people doing an entrance with music and stuff. I could have been playing Boo on Me when I came out, and I never thought of it. I've been kicking myself in the butt for years thinking about that now.
I bought that movie, man. I have it on my Prime Video. So.
Oh, you saw it?
I did.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime and some other streaming. And I got to call Ray, but he said it was getting good reviews and people enjoyed it. I mean, it was different. It's not a wrestling movie. It's an action, adventure, science fiction thriller, but it's family friendly. and it's not Batman 20, Chucky 30, Indiana Jones 10.
Unbreakable once won. So
Yeah.
Matt.
I have to ask because this is something that going back and watching your early, like just your, because when you came in, I was when you left the early days, I was just being born in '81 when you left, and oh shoot,
You were born in 81 when I
Yeah.
left the WWF?
yep,
You were a baby.
yeah, I was just a little guy. So I had to go back and watch some of your stuff so I can, just as a student of the game. I've just by sifting through all your stuff, I would put you in the top 5 of what they would call, well, obviously heels of all time.
Really?
Just because of the heat you got by, and I quote, stalling. Can you explain your version of stalling? Or
Well, here's the thing. I think Meltzer or someone came up with that word stalling. They invented it. But when you're in the business, especially back in my days, if you didn't sell tickets, you didn't eat. It wasn't like today where the WWE is going to pay for your surgery, or if you're rehabbing, you're getting a check. I mean, you didn't sell tickets, we didn't eat. So there was a psychology. And at that time, people hated me so much. And the way I conducted myself with the psychology I knew, from the old schoolers, was to make them believe in my character. And I was the most hated guy. So when I would walk out a certain way, I would, go by and some little kid would hand me his autograph book on cameras. I'm walking to the ring and I'd take it and tear it up and throw it in, and people would be, oh, and I would get in the ring and the whole place was going berserk chanting, Larry sucks, Larry sucks. And before this, there really was no chants. No one was chanting. It was a different kind of fan base. So they were chanting, Larry sucks, Larry sucks. So I used that psychology to keep the crowd going. So I'd run out and tell the announcer to tell them to shut up, and I'd jump back in the ring, and they're going, Larry sucks. And I'd jump out the other side and yell at some one of the fans making fun of me. I'd be yelling at them and then going back in the ring. So I was kind of putting on a show without wrestling because the crowd was going nuts. So why stop them? They want,
Yeah.
that's what they were into. Give it to them. And then when I could feel, sometimes it was 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. One time I walked back and it was Grizzly Smith was the agent. And he says to me, it was 16 minutes before any contact. The Grizzly, but the crowd was going nuts. Larry, why let him go?
Yeah.
And then when I did do something that really meant something, but that's that. And the secret to that whole psychology was they were chanting Larry sucks because even though the fans were changing and the Meltzer and the cheat sheets were stooging and things were changing, but people believed that in real life, forget wrestling, in real life, I'm an asshole. And they believed, I made them believe that I was a true a-hole. And they got into the Larry sucks, and stalling was invented because if I started wrestling, the crowd would have came down and you'd have to start all over. Let him go. The place was rocking.
Yeah.
Larry sucks, so boo on
Go
me.
on me. So in the WWF, you were like Bruno's understudy.
Yeah, it's protege.
He was like his protege, he was like a dad figure to you. But one of your defining moments was when you turned on him and during a match in the 1980s. It was called The Betrayals, known as The Betrayals. Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, I was young and full of testosterone and all that, and wanting to get a break. And Bruno was my hero. I wanted to be like him. But I became known in the business when I was young. People couldn't remember my name. Even some of the promoters in other territories would say, "Who, Larry?" Oh, I mean, Bruno's protege. So I was getting known as Bruno's protege instead of myself. And he was getting ready to, retire. And I was getting ready to start a full-time career and just kind of freaked out and wanted to be known as Larry Zbyszko, not someone's protege. And they didn't know who my name was back then,
Go on them.
So it kind of steamed up, and I lost my head one night and whacked him. But and the rest is history. I mean, when I think about, when you get to my age and you sit back and you think about your life, what I did in the wrestling and being a private pilot, flying planes all over the country for 20 years and a couple through big storms. I thought I was going to crash in the mountains. It was really a hell of a life, but I had to do that one crazy thing with Bruno to get myself a name and be known as me. I didn't realize, no one realized or believed at the time it was going to be as big as it was. I mean, in those days, selling out Shea Stadium with 44,000 some people was unheard of before pay-per-view. And they've actually turned away like 5,000-6,000 people because the stadium, the Shea Stadium, wouldn't let the promoters put chairs on the outfield and the infield, that they would tear up all the grass and stuff. But, that one thing really was the big break of a lifetime. And it wasn't easy to get done because Bruno was so retiring. And Vince McMahon Sr., he was the guy that had to whip out his checkbook and rent Madison Square Garden and rent Shea Stadium. But he came around and believed in, my dream too. And the rest is history. It came true, and I lived a really cool, wonderful dream come true life in front of the greatest fans of all. God bless them, and I hope everybody's dreams come true too, because our body's a temporary vehicle in this dimension, a dimension of mass. We're eternal consciousness. And I think about things I used to do when I was a kid. It almost seems like a dream, just a dream I had that was, like maybe I saw on television, but I couldn't believe it was me 70, years ago.
Yeah.
Life's an interesting voyage for a visit here.
It is for sure. Matt?
This one, I vaguely remember your feud with Sergeant Slaughter. He was one of those heels again when I was growing up, saw him wrestle Hulk Hogan, but he was a face at that point. When you
This is
wrestled
in the AWA you're talking?
yes.
Yeah.
What was it like working with him, and do you have any stories about that feud and that series of matches you guys had?
Well, to tell you the truth, after 10,000 matches, it's hard to remember just one. But it's interesting about the Sarge, because the Sarge, when he came in the AWA, is the good guy, and he had the perfect look with that chin sticking out. He looked like Sergeant somebody, and people got into him. And some of the matches I had with him, they were all great. And again, easy because they loved him and they were chanting Larry sucks and booing on me. So it was easy. And one thing I remember about the me and Sergeant Slaughter feud, which didn't last long, they brought different opponents in for me, Sarge and Harley Race and Saito and someone else. But I had one match for Sergeant Slaughter, and believe it was in Chicago, the big place. And after the match, I came backstage, and Nick Bockwinkel came up to me. And he said, "Larry, that was the greatest match I ever saw." And it was like, a super compliment. But yeah, me and Sarge, it was a night off, and the place went nuts, and yeah, it was. Yeah, no, he was great, and he looked the part. I mean, he looked like a Sarge.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to congratulate you on the 1974 Rookie of the Year. That's impressive. So that's a good accomplishment.
Okay.
I leaned into that, but I talk to us about, and maybe you don't want to. I did not realize that you had this beef with Chris Jericho and with Living Legend.
Oh,
Is that washed away now, or?
Oh, that's all long gone, God. And it wasn't anything to do with Jericho. It was just kind of a game they play in the wrestling business where WCW just ended, and the next thing you know, Jericho's walking around calling himself the Living Legend, which made no sense really. But at the same time, I get a call from Jim Ross. And Jim Ross says, "Hey, Larry, we're really interested in bringing you in to do the color commentating on Thursday SmackDown." I think back then it was a Thursday show.
Yep.
This is right after WCW. And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, Kevin Dunn, the guy in charge of the broadcasting or whatever. Yeah, I'd like to have you come in and do an audition." And I said, "Do an audition? You just see me for 10 years." WCW, but yeah, I'd love to fly in, and it'd be really, Jim, it would be perfect. And, because I was the most chanted guy and beloved announcer WCW had.
Yeah.
So it would be perfect. Jerry at Monday, me at Thursday, and they were really chanting Larry's at WCW. So it would have carried over. Plus, I even ran by Jim. I said, Jericho was calling himself the Living Legend thing. I said, I got an idea where if I do the commentating, I can bring myself out of the, color booth and get involved in a special match against Jericho for burying the name, and maybe even get Bruno to be in my corner, because back then, you didn't want to go back and whatever, but another story. But Jim said, "Yeah, well, that sounds interesting." So I said, "Well, just give me a call and let me know when you want me to fly out." So then a few days go by and I get a letter in the mail from the legal department of the WWE, the lawyers, that say, "We have taken your name, the Living Legend, and are now going to own it. Sign here, so we own the trademark for the Living Legend. We thank you in advance." And I shake it, but no check comes out. And then I tried to call JR back, and he wouldn't answer. So it was kind of like a game where they go, "Okay, yeah, well, tell them we're going to offer him a job and then have him sign this thing, and then, go to hell." And it's too bad, because I think it would have been really great, and I would have loved to have been there and do that. But that's just the way it is. So just the lawyer stuff, and I was hoping that maybe it would lead to a job. Finally, get Vince on the phone and just, "Come on, Vince, we started together. Let's just do something cool, Yeah. Anyway, but it was nothing, and nothing against Jericho. He's still in there hopping around, I think. I don't watch much of AEW. They got a few guys there that have been around a while. I think him and Christian Cage. Yeah. They keep changing their names, so it's hard to remember some of these guys. Yeah, they're still flying around. Yeah. God bless them.
So a buddy of mine from the multiple medias that I'm part of wants to know, what were your thoughts on your time in TNA?
Well, if I remember right, there was a little bit when they were doing it in Nashville. I think me and Terry Taylor, Terry lived by me in north of Atlanta, and we'd drive up to Nashville. And he was doing something behind the scenes. And I don't know if that's when I was the commissioner or something. But I remember in Nashville, I had a match with AJ Styles when he was starting. Because there was some talk about maybe having me manage AJ and whatever. But me and AJ had a match, and it was great. It was a great match. Even one of the lawyers at the lawsuit thing with the WWE said, yeah, you and Styles had a great match. But I remember it starting there, but then someone bought it out, Dixie or something. And the good part is it moved to Orlando. And it was no big money deal or something, a few bucks. But I lived in Orlando, and they filmed in Orlando. I think I might have been doing a commissioner thing or something. But it was fun for me because I could get a place to park at Universal Studios in the back lot. And I hit all the rides 50 times. I loved the rides. They had the Hulk, they had Doctor Doom, the Haunted House. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But I love doing that. So that was fun for me, really. I lived right there in Dr. Phillips, went to Universal in 5 minutes, did some TNA skits, whatever, and then hit all the rides. It was great.
Well, I can tell you, I was that kid that never got to watch WWF, WWE because I didn't have a satellite dish, so on and so forth. And growing up, you got busy doing stuff. But I was a WCW guy. And I'll tell you what, I know you were part of this. The night for me that changed my world as far as wrestling goes, when Hogan come down on Daytona Beach, dropped that leg on Macho Man Randy Savage, and boom, one of the biggest storylines ever, the NWO started.
God, is that when the NWO started, or was when Scott Hall walked in?
Well, it is Scott Hall and Kevin Nash months before that. But for me, I was like, oh my God.
Oh, okay.
WCW now, in my opinion, was top dog in the business. And so,
you know what? We gave him something different, and you can boo on me, but I'll be blunt about this. Eric and me was close. I brought Eric in. I'm not in, but gave him a little help to get in. When AWA closed, and we got him in the with Turner. And Eric was smart. He'd listen to some guys who've been around and know, and he'd know if it was a good idea or a bad idea. And I'm the one that inspired the name, call it the New World Order. Okay. And after I said it a couple of times on the commentary and talked to Eric about it, and he said, you know what? That's the name, the New World Order. So he made the decision to do that. And then I'm the one that arranged the way Scott Hall first came in, to interrupt the match that's never been done and start off the New World Order, and then when Hogan, but the way we did it, and at the time we did it captured something that was gone from the business for a while. The guys got true heat. Hall got true heat, Nash. Bischoff got a true heat when he turned and joined the NWO, and it was a kind of a feeling like, I'd be out there at the broadcast, be chanting Larry till I got up and gave him the big L. But it was kind of like being 15 years ago in the past where the fans were into it with so much emotion, and it was really hot. And I know the WWE was like freaked out and trying to figure out ways to compete with what was going on because, they were getting buried in the ratings, and they tried all kind of silly stuff. But, WCW was super hot. I don't know if wrestling, well, I shouldn't say that because it's different nowadays. In the WWE, limoed me out to St. Petersburg for the Royal Rumble 6 months ago or something. And there's 48,000 people in the building, broke the attendance record. So the business, God bless them, it's night and day from when I started. But, the fans love it. Worldwide, it's worldwide now, the company and the wrestlers. So it's interesting for me to sit back and watch. I've seen a couple new eras now, come in, and now we're kind of going into the global streaming era of everywhere. And there's millions and millions of things. God bless them. So for me, it's interesting to kick back, and once in a while I'll fly out and do an autograph signing or something. And there's something else I got to tell you I may be doing here real soon that kind of caught me off guard 2 weeks ago when they called me. But someone kind of offered me, I think, kind of a job doing commentary on a new wrestling show, a new and different kind of wrestling league that's called Shoot Pro.
Okay.
And I'm not a computer guy, and they told me that people can check out shootprowrestling.com. And what it is they shot some matches. They're going to shoot some more in Vegas, I think, in a couple of weeks. And they got a TV deal with this Trilla TV. Did you ever hear of that?
No, I have not.
It was 4,000, streaming. But they got a TV deal, and they're starting a new wrestling show. But it's not going to be like AEW or WWE. I mean, there's no punching, no kicking. It's going to be like the old school days with Carl Gotch and Billy Robbins. It's going to be what its name is shootwrestling.com. So, I mean, and in those kind of matches, I mean, wrestling's been around for thousands and thousands of years, since the ancient Egyptians. But it was the Roman Empire. The Romans turned it into a real brutal, bone-breaking, deadly sport of one-on-one. Break an arm, pop a shoulder off, break your neck, choke you out. Yeah. And that's what this is going to be. This is going to be no punches, no kicks, no MMA, but strictly, shoot wrestling.
Well, I just looked up Shoot Pro Wrestling, and on their Facebook page, you're the top guy with your Hall of Fame. You're standing there with your Hall of Fame. So January 4th. So you're on. You're in, man.
Well, they want me to to do the color over these matches. So I said, well, I'm not doing anything else. And the good part is they're going to be filming the matches in Vegas this time, maybe somewhere next time. But then me and the other guy, Matt, are going to, I could do it from my house. I can just link on to whatever link they send me. And then when we see the matches, we'll record over it. And I don't have to leave the house. I don't got to fly around. Flying around nowadays is scary. You get delayed in parking. And oh, God.
Oh. So we got a fan watching. He says, I enjoyed the episode of Impact when Jim Cornette and you, I don't remember what the scenario was, but you told Jim, but I would only do it according to the contract. Remember that?
Well, what's the name?
Joshua Witt.
Joshua. I'm sorry, my friend. I don't remember that at all. I mean, there was so many things I've done over so many years, and I really don't remember doing any little back and forth with Cornette. I believe you, but, senior moments.
You worked with, in my opinion, a top 3 manager of all time in Paul Heyman. What was it like working with him, and do you have any interesting stories working with him?
Well, not too much. I mean, there's pictures online I've seen pop up where Paul Heyman was like maybe 13 years old or so. And whenever we would wrestle somewhere in New York, I don't know if it was White Plains or something, but young Paulie, the kid, would always be there and want pictures and say hi. I mean, he was another kid like me who loved, just by watching, he loved the business and wanted to be in it. He loved the business. And in his day growing up watching the old the old pros like Albano and Blassie and the Grand Wizard and some others. He's got that old school psychology in his head. And I think one time in the AWA, he was managing a tag team. I was involved with him a little bit. But I really don't remember too much because he was in the AWA a little bit and then he went on. But I mean, in terms of doing the manager thing, he's still doing. Paulie does a great job. I mean, he does a great job. He's got a naturally disgusting look. I've never seen anybody with such a big head, to turn the ball thing. So he looks like a character for real. And he talks great. But what was your question again?
Well, do you have any stories of like your interactions with Paul? Any like on the road stories, that kind of stuff?
To be honest with you, not really, because I never been on the road with him. We're never driving around in cars together. So I really didn't know him that well. And to me, who was a star in those days, and he was a young upcoming guy trying to be a manager, I really didn't associate with him or do anything with him, And then, his career went on. But when I knew him, I just, you get so busy in those days because you lived in your car, or me in a little airplane, but every day you were in a different city. So you didn't have a normal life. You're either on the highway, up in the air, in a different city. When I first started, the old timers would say, whatever you do, don't get married. Because, it's stupid to get married. You're never home. Well, see you in a month, hon. And then I'm going to Japan for 5 weeks. And I'll be back a day next year. It was a different life. But Paulie, he was doing a great job. He's still going. I wasn't a big fan of ECW. I didn't like that stuff. And I don't know what happened, but I remember Shane Douglas one time was complaining because back in those days, he was putting hotel rooms and flights and things on his credit card that Paul was supposed to pay him for. But then the company went bankrupt and these guys got 40 grand on their credit cards for, oh God, yeah, that's too bad.
So you mentioned ECW. One of my favorite wrestlers in ECW was in WCW 2 was Raven. And I know you had a hair versus hair match, I guess. Yeah. So can you talk about that?
Well, I don't know what got into me, but I must have felt like doing stuff. But that was at TNA in Orlando when they were taping. Okay. And to be honest with you, I vaguely remember it, but that was mostly the Mia Day to hit the fun parks. But I don't remember a lot of specifics, to be honest with you. I remember doing it. I think he won and shaved my head.
Okay.
But for some reason at that time, I was doing experiments with my hair and got a free little implant freebie cover up. So I wanted my hair real short anyway.
Okay.
So it worked out good for me.
All right. Move on him.
Yes.
So one of my favorite wrestlers, and I don't know if you're a fan of it, but one of my favorite wrestlers is Sting. And I know you'd have to have some interaction with WCW about Sting. So is there any cool interactions that you had with Sting?
No, not really. I mean, he's a nice guy. And he came along at a time when the business was already kind of changed. And like the things Bruno would protest about, but they weren't like the big Brunos or George Steeles or Koloff, 300 pounds, or Tanaka, 300 pounds. They were all like bodybuilders. And that's a time before it was illegal. Steroids was running rampant through the business because guys figured instead of learning my trade, instead of learning how to, the psychology, so I could get the people to love me or hate me, they worried more about how big their bicep was. So the art of, going in the ring and putting on a great match and getting over to the most and drawing money was kind of disappearing, and everybody was a bodybuilder. Like Lex Luger, every Lex Luger match was 3 clotheslines and a torture rack. That's all he could do. He just had to go to the gym. And Sting wasn't bad, though. I mean, he was into working out and all, but he wasn't like a super bodybuilder guy. He was more of an athletic guy. So Sting was a little different than the other guys, but it was turning into, more of a bodybuilder look for a while than, the big, naturally scary-looking Killer Kowalskis. And, how many guys look like George Steele at 300 pounds? If he came at you, you'd go, oh, get away from me. Oh.
Yeah.
So in 91, you kind of transitioned into the commentary role. And this is kind of a two-parter. What kind of pushed you into that direction, and what was your favorite part about being on the commentary desk?
Well, good question. I mean, I've never had an idea when I was in the business. I never even thought of being a broadcaster. I was great with interviews and knew the psychology and all that. Never thought about it. And here's what happened. I was wrestling, but I was getting like maybe 41, 42, and been in the ring a good 20 years, Had a few knee surgeries, nothing bad, but torn cartilage. And Bill Watts came in, and Bill Watts was a real jerk. And he was messing everything up. And then he started this group, the Dangerous Alliance, with me and Arn and Bobby, and I think a new Stone Cold before he was Stone Cold, and Rick Rude. And Paulie, I think, was managing the little group.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be part of the group, because when you're part of the group, you become like everybody else. I wanted to keep the heat I had and the being the living legend, not the cruncher, part of a group thing. So what I did was I called TBS and said, oh, my knee hurts. I got to get, like they paid for a little scopic, cartilage removal. And I got myself out of the group. And I was home floating in the pool one afternoon, a couple months later, still a little rehabbing. And I get a phone call from PBS, WCW. And they said to me, hey, Larry, Jesse the Body Ventura just quit and he left. Could you do us a favor and come down and maybe commentate over a couple of pre-taped shows that we have in the can that have to go out to, markets? Okay, and I felt guilty and getting bored floating around. So I went down to the CNN Center, wherever it was then, and I did a couple of shows where I commentated, did the color, and I don't know, I can't remember who I did it with him, Tony or JR, or there was an old guy from Florida. I can't remember the name. I'll get it in a minute. So I did these 2 shows, and the door swings open, and the executive producer comes in and says, Larry, you're the greatest color guy we ever heard. Do you want to do the color for the shows? We'll give you this much money a year. I went, what? I almost fell off the chair. They offered me more money. This was a time when Turner was giving away money like he was printing it in his basement. It was ridiculous. But I lucked out and was in that spot. And I said, wait a minute, you're going to pay me this much? And I broadcast, which turned out to be like a day and a half a week. Wow. Flying out for, Nitro. I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And that's how my 10-year basically reign of doing the color started. They needed help. I went in, never thought about it, never did it before, but I've been blessed with the gift of gab. So, when I looked at my commentary, I always tried to make it seem to the fans who were listening how this works, why this hurts, how this guy outsmarted that guy like it's real contest in a way. But that's how it started. Jesse quit, and I did that and got offered a job as an employee with benefit and travel, all the whole thing.
That's a
I
dream.
can't complain.
That's a
And
dream
lots of
job.
golf. And lots of golf from what I
Yeah, I golfed all week.
There you go. That's a dream job of mine, man. One day in my life, I'd like to be doing some commentary. So, well, this is the first step right here.
Yeah, and I'm great with the golf too. I was a scratch golfer there, and I went out and I played on a couple of PGA Senior Pro qualifiers. Just missed a cut barely, but then I played in some professional senior mini tours throughout Florida. That's how I wound up in Florida years ago. And I did okay. I won a few bucks here and there, but it just got to be too much of a job, getting up and driving somewhere and getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning for an 8 o'clock tea time. And it's, oh, God, one bad shot, you might as well go home. So it was fun for a while, but that's pretty good.
So you still in South Florida then, or?
Yeah, well, I'm in Orlando.
Okay, awesome.
So right now it's like 65 tonight, so it's cold.
I live up in Fort Walton Beach near Destin, the Panhandle. So.
Oh, okay, you're in the.
And it's cold. It's like 40 degrees. So.
Yeah,
you know what?
You're farther north.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play the heel for a second here. You both need to just you be quiet because it's maybe 15 degrees here. I live in Michigan.
Oh God, I couldn't. My body couldn't take it anymore. I mean, I've been in the north and lived there, but when I first got to Minnesota years ago, the first time at the AW, years ago, I pulled my car into a parking lot at the mall, and then I arrived in the summertime. And as I'm walking to the mall, I'm looking, and all these cars have a wire coming out of the front end of them with a plug. And I'm going, what the hell's all these cars got an extension cord sticking out of their hood? And then in the wintertime, I realized why they did it, because it was so cold, 14 degrees, 10 below zero. If they went in the mall for over an hour, your oil gets so cold it gets hard and your engine can't start it. So they got the heated dipsticks, and they got to plug their car in if they go in shopping. You can't park it outside because you won't be able to start it. I couldn't live there. I'm done.
So every interview, Matt, my brother and I do with legends of the business, and sometimes with the independent guys, we ask, is there any ribs or road stories that can be told?
Well, yeah, there's one I put in my book that cracked me up, but there was some ribs, but not a whole lot of ribs because you didn't want to get involved in the ribbing. You didn't want to get ribbed back. And one of the notorious guys for ribbing was Mr. Fuji. And if you fell asleep in the dressing room, he'd put 3 or 4 strips of tape over your boot and light them. And then you'd wake up because you'd look over and see the big hot foot on your boot burning away, and he thought that was a riot. But you didn't want to rib Mr. Fuji back because then he'd re-rib you worse. But one time, we're flying to Japan. I was on the plane. Fuji was on the plane. I think Chavo Guerrero and a couple other guys, Maeva. And Haystacks Calhoun was on the plane. We're flying to Japan. And it's like a 12-hour flight or something. So Mr. Fuji takes X-Lax and pours it in Haystacks Calhoun's food, drink, whatever. So Calhoun drinks all this X-Lax he don't know about. And as the flight goes on, pretty soon Calhoun's moving back and forth. He's not feeling good. He has to go to the bathroom. Well, on an airplane, you guys know the size of a bathroom. Calhoun, 600 some pounds of him, he couldn't get in the bathroom. He couldn't get one lane in the damn bathroom. So he's in the back by the bathrooms. The stewardess, felt sorry for him, slides a curtain and they're holding a big plastic bag under his 600-pound ass. And he's back there going.
Go on him.
Yeah, you hear some noises, and the boys were laughing at first, but then they started getting sick because it was such a big crap from this Calhoun that the smell was coming out into the passenger zone, and everybody wanted to kill Fuji.
That's fun. That's awesome.
But that was like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
I had read and have heard the story of Mr. Fuji, taking the engine out of someone's car and like the guy came out to start his car and he gets in, click there, and nothing. And the guy opens up the hood of the car, looks, and he's looking straight down at pavement. And yeah,
I never heard that one, to be honest with you. I mean, it was weird in the old days when the cars were out and they had like the tachometer on the speedometer part. What the guys would do, because we'd put 50, 60,000 miles easy a year on a car. Easy. So they'd buy a car and put 3,000 or 4,000 miles on it. And then you'd pick up the hood and you'd just unscrew a wire, the wire that went into the speedometer. So you just unscrewed the wire, drove the car for 2 years, and then screw the wire back in, take it in for a trade-in. So you got this nice new looking car that's only got 4,500 miles, but in reality, it's got 120,000 miles. So they used to mess around, but car engines were easy to work with in those days. Some guys would change their own oil. Nowadays, you pick up a hood and you go, what the hell? Where's the motor? What?
Yeah.
There's all kind of stuff. But I never heard the one about removing a motor. I don't know if Fuji could do that. He might have hired someone to do it.
I think he hired someone to do that. But
yeah, I never heard that one, but it wouldn't surprise me.
What's your favorite match that you've been in and favorite venue?
Oh God! I mean, the most classy place, especially in the old days where you'd get famous, was Madison Square Garden. So, just for the hell of it, I gotta say, it was the Garden, and me and Bruno sold it out 3 times to build up for the Shea thing, but. Not only did we sell out the Garden, but underneath the Garden, there's the Felt Forum, which holds like 5,000 or so people. And there's big giant TV sets. You're 1 floor under what's going on above you. So we sold out the Garden and the Felt Forum. But that was like the classiest kind of name place to go, In fact, that was even before maybe somewhere like the Atlanta Omni. Might have been even made after that, or some other places. Philadelphia Spectrum, Boston Gardens, all of them. The Garden was, and it's weird because Madison Square Garden is privately owned. It's not owned by like the city. It's privately owned and very expensive. I mean, they really take most of the money you draw. So, even if you sold out the Garden, there wasn't a bunch of money left over for the promotion.
Wow.
But it was the prestige,
Yeah, that's awesome. I kind of figured it probably was the Garden because that is like the elite.
And it used to be years ago, even more.
Yeah. Matt, you have anything else?
Do you have any interesting stories or whatever about Dusty Rhodes, working with him throughout the years, and any dealings with him that are interesting. I'm a big Dusty Rhodes guy.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, I mean, I knew Dusty well over the years, and we got along great, and I've worked with him a bunch and talk about, a night off in the ring because Dusty was over and I had heat and all that. But wait a minute, what the hell? The one thing that happened that I really remember Dusty for and respect the hell out of the guy for was I came down to the NWA, which is owned by the Crockett's, and Dusty was booking for them. And I was in the ring, and I was getting, heat up the wazoo, people chanting, Larry sucks, Larry sucks. And I did a promo for the people of, I think this was in Atlanta, but it was the NWA territory at the time. And I did an interview where I said I was going to work with Tommy Rich, and Tommy was really over in Georgia and in the NWA for a while. The people really got into him. So I did this promo saying, you know what, Tommy Rich, when I'm done with you, they're going to go to Stone Mountain, which is right up the road from Atlanta, and they're going to carve your face in rock right next to the world's all-time great losers, because they lost the Civil War. Yeah. And that's what I said in my promo. Well, the Crockett's, who were Southern guys, got mad. And they said, we got to get rid of this guy. How dare he knock the South like that? Some stupid stuff. But it was Dusty who stuck up for me and said, hey, this guy's great. He said he gets heat just standing there. He said, no, this guy's great. Don't get mad. It's just an interview. It's like I did an interview so good I got the promotion.
There you go. Yeah.
Now,
So go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
I would actually, honestly, in that generation, put you in the same air as far as your promos and everything. If I would put you in the same breath as Ric Flair. You two were just amazing on the mic at that point, and of all time. And it's more of a statement than a question, but yeah, I just felt that you and Rick were like one of the same. You guys knew how to get heat, and that's just kind of a lost art, I think, because the only person now that can do it is, in my opinion, the only person nowadays that can really get that heat is MJF over in AEW.
Yeah, I really haven't seen him a lot. When I seen him, he's talking with a scarf, but the interviews go on too long nowadays. We did interviews that are 2 minutes and got to the point and the emotion. They'll stand in the ring now with a microphone and talk for 10 minutes or more. Like, well, we used to be friends. Yeah, it's enough already.
We talked about that.
Flair did a great job on the stick, and that was one of the secrets of getting to the people's emotions. And Flair was great on the stick. I was great on the stick. Dusty had his character great on the stick, and some other guys too. But that was one of the secrets. You had to be good on the stick. If you were a real dumbass but looked great, they'd give you a manager.
So I want to talk about one topic, and I bring it up because Jim Hofferth of SICW, a Herb Simmons guy up in St. Louis. He puts on a promotion that talks. They put out a show that is territory-like. So, do you think that the territories were big back when you were in the business? Now, do you think that's missing from today's business?
Well, not really, because the reason there was territories because all the television was local. If you wrestled in Minnesota or the AWA in the Chicago and their big city in the Midwest, you didn't see any Bruno or you didn't see anybody wrestling in the WWF or NWA. So the territories were based on the television. And it's a long story short, but nowadays, the death of the territories was the era of cable and national television and pay-per-view because why have a territory when you can run the whole country? And Vince was the one that saw it coming first. So he's the one that made the move to get other territories, the top talent, which was great for the boys because that's what led to the contracts and guys not being able to leave and all this and that, and led to WrestleMania and outdid the Super Bowl. It's great.
Now, who was your absolute favorite guy to work with? Like, who was the guy that you enjoyed working with?
You know what? There was a bunch of them. I mean, I had him. Me and Tommy Rich went 1 hour, and I got a great compliment from Harley Race after that match. I went back to the dressing room, and Harley Race said, "Larry, that's the greatest 60-minute Broadway I've ever seen." Just like the Bockwinkel, thing. But, Tommy Rich was a night off. I mean, Dusty was a night off. Bockwinkel was. And when I say a night off, I don't mean we didn't do anything, but to get the crowd going and, the noise and the emotion and the excitement was easy because they were over for them and everybody hated me. But, there's probably some other ones I could name too. But I had great matches with everybody basically because the bad guys are the show. They're the ones that make the good guy look good and then cheat and beat him up and then get to come back and bounce around like one of the Three Stooges. But so it was kind of easy for me because whenever I saw an opponent, I knew what I had to do to make them over with the crowd, according to what they could do. Because some guys could do a good arm drag or a fireman's carry, and other guys couldn't. So don't go, doing things they can't do. It's a lost art.
So our friend Jim, he says it's a compliment. What a mind for having Scott Hall come through the crowd and beating up WCW guys, making more realistic that WCW didn't know what they were doing, that they were being invaded. And I think he's saying you were part of that. You talked about that earlier. That was some of your ideas. So what a mind for wrestling that you have, and that's just impressive. And
well, that's the psychology from the old school. The idea that was being floated around was Scott Hall would just be sitting at ringside for a while. Okay, so what? And then, whatever. And I said, and then Eric said, "Okay, does anybody have anything else to say about that?" And I raised my hand, and the group of people in the office went, "Oh, God." And I laid it out. I said, "No." I said, "Have a match going. If Scott Hall's going to invade, if it's an invasion, invade. Just have him walk in. People will know who he is. The guys will look around, what the hell's going on? And it's a shocker. And if you do something, you got to do it right from the beginning. And then that's what gets it over. If you don't do it right from the beginning, you're not going to reach what it could have ever done." And I learned, it's just psychology I learned from the old school because I lucked out and Bruno was my mentor. But I didn't realize at the time the politic power I had either because I was Bruno's protege in real life, friend and mentor. All the other old school guys who knew the business, Chief Jay Strongbow, Altamore, Skolins, and then other guys, they would go out of their way to be nice to me and teach me all this stuff because it was like getting good vibrations from Bruno, and I didn't realize the politics. But everybody was nice to me at the old school and taught me stuff they wouldn't deal with other people because I was Bruno's guy.
wow, great stories, man.
One last one.
Oh, good. I gotta go to the bathroom. No, I'm kidding.
Do you have any stories or anything of that nature about Bob Backlund since you were working with him around that the start of like the end of Bruno's run into Bob Backlund's run?
Yeah. No, I had some matches with Bob. remember we had a match with Bob too, I think in the AWA. And it was a hell of a match. I mean, Bob was a great athlete, good wrestler, nice guy. But after Bruno, who looked like Bruno looked, and the other guys, the George Steeles, the Kowalskis, the Koloff, when Bob came in and they tried to give him a shot, he just looked like maybe a high school kid, kind of, the way he talked. We used to call him Howdy Doody. And even Monsoon, you go in the dressing room, Monsoon would say, okay, hey, you're wrestling a Howdy Doody tonight. And so it wasn't Bob's fault, but he just didn't look the part. He just couldn't fill the shoes. Nothing against Bob, because really there was really no one there to fill the shoes of Bruno or the next champion guy. The only guy that might have had a chance if done right that was there was maybe Patera, because he was an Olympic champion, 280-pound guy. He looked believable and he could move, and he could pass for maybe a young Bruno, wrestler kind of guy that people were used to seeing. Bob, great guy, good amateur, but he just didn't have the look. He looked like Howdy Doody compared to some of these guys.
That is one, I would be honest with you, that is one character I could not get around. I was like, nope, I don't get you.
No, yeah.
So, my last question is, you wrote a book. So can you talk to the fans about where they can get the book, where they can find the Living Legends, Larry Zbyszko's merch, and so on and so forth?
Oh, God. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure. What do you do? Just Google Larry, Welcome to Larryland, the name of the book. Okay. But I wrote it like so many years ago.
All right.
Some publishing company that was doing, a lot of wrestlers were writing books then.
Okay.
Yeah, Adventures in Larryland. You probably have to Google it or something. It's I can't remember the name of the company that printed the thing. But if you Google or whatever, Adventures in Larryland, I'm sure it'll pop up.
All right.
But I'm not a good computer guy. I have a flip phone.
And I'm telling you, go to ProWrestlingTees.com.
And Boo on Me.
Boo on Me t-shirts. Join
and watch the Unbreakable Bunch and check out the new Shoot Pro Wrestling League. We'll see what happens.
Jim just popped up. He said he's going to look it up and buy it. I'm going to buy one of those too.
I found it. It's on Amazon. Amazon.
All right.
You can get a paperback for $24.56 on Amazon.
Okay.
So there.
I hope they send me royalties. What?
You can get the digital version for your Kindle for $12.
Okay. I don't know what that is, but I believe you.
So Larry, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. My wife just put a bug in my ear. I have 2 more coming. We just got.
Yeah, you're a busy guy and you're doing great stuff, Scott. We're proud of you.
2 more. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, Larry Zbyszko, for coming on the show.
That's my pleasure.
I will continue to be in contact with you as because I call when I have guests on. I hope it's okay. I call you my friend. I thank you for the time you gave me and my brother. It was a big thing to have you on a Huge Pop Wrestling podcast.
Well, I appreciate it. If something comes up, let me know. If you get a chance to see Shoot Pro coming out soon, let me know what you think about it.
I will. And June in the month of June, my wife and I will probably be coming down to Orlando, so I might have to give you a phone call.
No, give me a buzz. You got my number. Don't give it out.
I won't do that. So, but thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for all the questions in the chat.
Thank you, and boo on me.
Boo on him. And Larry, please don't go anywhere. I'm going to play a song. Don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you real quick. Okay?
Okay, I'll be outside.
All right. Boo on you.